VectorStyler has many unique features to color or recolor vector artwork. I'm going to demonstrate a few today, but you'll see we'll only be scratching the surface. Let's start with a simple design. I'll take a grid. I'm going to separate each of the cells of the grid into separate shapes. For this, I'm using the region Boolean operator. The simplest way to apply a color is to simply click in the palette and apply the selected color. If you Alt-click, it changes the stroke color, which is a nice shortcut. Another trick is if you select multiple colors in your palette and throw them on the design, it will apply them to different shapes of the design. That's the first way, very basic. Now we're going to go into the effect, and there's a first section called color filters. This is where we'll find most of the effects. So you see you get a lot of possibilities here. So we'll start with replace colors and colorize. Here we have different ways to colorize. So we'll start with gradient. Click preview. So you see you can select your gradient, change the angle, and adjust your gradients as you want. Your design gets colored using this gradient. So that's the first way. Another similar way is using intensity. So intensity, you're selecting a foreground color and a background color. And then you're using a function to select between foreground and background. So you can use randomize, and it will randomize colors between these two colors. Noise. So noise is nice. You can vary the noise, you can change the type of noise. And you can also use gradient. So gradient will also be used, but this time the gray level of the gradient will be used to blend between the foreground and background color. That's a very nice way to apply color. Now let me apply it again. So I've created shortcuts on my toolbar, which is easier. So I'm going to launch colorize again. And we are going to choose palette. I'm going to choose a nicer palette, this one. And so it will apply the colors in the order they appear in the palette. You can also click one and command click or shift click several colors to apply them to your composition. You can randomize. The other thing you can do is, for instance, select multiple colors till you get a pattern like this, and use the fade function here to blend with the existing color of your design. So your existing colors are the last gradient we have applied, and then you can superimpose the new colors on your design. The other thing you can do is select options here and decide if you want the strokes to be changed or not. The next way is to use an image. For instance, this image. We're going to apply to a role to this image, which is filter image. Then we can hide it. Select the artwork. Going to use the region coloring mode. For this, we're going to select our image. And as you can see, the image has been applied to colorize your artwork. Next mode is called variations. Let's colorize using variations. So you need first to select a color that you want to work with. And VectorStyler will create a whole palette of colors based on this base color. So if we change it, we change. You can change how the palette is generated. So there are different options: complementary, analogous. Stay with that. And you can also choose the palette on the left and the palette on the right. So you have different options here. So you could say, I want to start with warm and end with cool. And choose, the intensity of the blending between the warm and the cool. You can select the number of steps. So that's a very powerful module. It's kind of a bit complex to understand at first, but you can get really very nice variations using this mode. Let's look at ways now that you can further modify the colors of your design. So if you go in the effects here, you will get all sorts of effects, which are very classical. But the difference here, so if you apply curve, for instance, you can change your colors using curve. Once you click OK, what's different from applying it, for instance, in affinity, is that now the color of your shapes have been changed using the effect, which means your design is flat, there's no effect applied on it, dynamic effect, and you can export it and use it on a web browser, which would not support adjustments. So that's really strong because you can apply all sorts of effects of the pixel world onto your vector shapes. For instance, you can use the hue adjustment and shift the hue of your design. You can also fade with the current design, so lots of possible variations. Another very useful feature is called nearest color. So what you can do is map the colors of your design to the colors of a palette you select. And so it will try to match as close as possible to the colors of your palette. So if you're working with a more limited palette, it would find a match. So that's very useful. Replace colors. So this feature is similar to the one in Illustrator, where you can select, so where all the colors used in your composition will be listed here, and you can select multiple of them, decide to maybe group them to one, and then you can change this group of color to something else. And you have many ways to replace your colors. You can also change the color order, so it will randomize the order of the colors. I'm not using this module very much, but it's very powerful. This step color is very good when you want to apply very small variations to your design. So here I have this gradient and I want to add a little bit of red randomly, and it will add those small variations. Could remove some green, add some blue, and get all those subtle changes. Lastly, I want to show you a very cool feature, which is leveraging the blend modes. So let's say you have these shapes, and you're using blend modes to get different blending of colors. Let's say overlay here. So you see these blend modes apply in VectorStyler, but if you export the vectors into another application, it's most likely that the blend mode will be lost and you will lose all those color combinations here. What you can do is select your work and apply a feature called flatten opacities. And what this does is it cuts the shapes into different shapes that embed the color obtained through the blend modes. So that's really a fantastic feature for exporting your artwork in vector form. Okay, so that's all for this episode. I hope it was useful. Thank you.